Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And an unconventional color combo for I was going to say fall themed card, but really this could be any season because I went with non conventional colors. I was going to do fall colors and then everything took on a mind of its own. So I'm using a combination of sort of new, oldie but goodie, fun stuff. Like always, everything I use will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills, keeps the lights on, enables me to keep bringing out content. And yeah, let's get into making this card. So I've got some lightweight watercolor paper. I've shown this in many videos. I like this stuff, especially with Simon's Pawsitively saturated inks. They just play very nicely together, as you're going to see. So I've got this panel of watercolor paper. I'm going to spray the back of it with water. Probably a little extra overkill because I heavily sprayed it with water. You just need a bit. It just helps soften those fibers and you get a better embossed impression. And I'm putting it in, this is the Leafy Wreath embossing folder. This was part of their October 2025 release. And put it in the folder. And then with the Simon Says Stamp brand 3D embossing folders and my Anna Griffin Empress machine, one cutting plate. That's all you need. Maybe a cardstock or metal shim if you're not getting like enough impression, but I rarely ever need that. So I did my embossing. I let everything dry, aka I blasted it with my heat tool to speed up the drying. And then I'm using 4 different colors of Simon's inks to add color. And you don't need to be precious with this. This is literally what I say when I say like slap some ink on it. That's what I'm doing. Because it doesn't need to be nice. It doesn't need to, like, we are going to spray this with water. It's going to go everywhere. So I just need to get color down. So I'm just using some blending brushes and slap it on this ink. And the colors I chose are Field and Kale. So, greens. Starting out normal. Then I'm going to add Raindrop and Galaxy. And yeah. I had fall color. This would look gorgeous in fall colors. Trust me. So many fun things. And this, like, I was filming this, but this was like my test run because I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to turn out. I had, a rough idea in my head, but it worked and I went with it. And now I need to do this in other colors, especially with a embossing folder like this with like leaves. Sky's the limit. Do whatever colors. Do non-conventional like this, blues and purples and whatever. But also you could do, yellows and reds and browns and again, sky's the limit. So fun. So these inks, like I said, play very nicely on this watercolor paper, and also like these inks are obviously very water reactive. So I sprayed it with water. Big old mess. I wanted the color just to go everywhere. And the raised bits of the embossing will trap a little bit of it here and there. I'm rotating it around, and this is very lightweight, watercolor paper, so it is going to like curl up and do its thing. I'm fine with this because once it's dry, I'm going to run it through my embossing folder again. Because when you're adding so much water to something that's been embossed like this, all that raised images starts to slowly flatten out. So once this was dry, or mostly dry, I put it back in the embossing folder, and you can just feel it sort of click into place, and line up with the image. And I ran it through again, and that re-embossed, like re-emphasized the leaves. And you just get this really fun look. Now, on film, it does kind of seem to get covered up with this next layer, but trust me, you can still see all the embossing. I love it. I love it. So this was from the previous release. This was in the September release. This is the Fall Wreath Wafer die. And it comes in 2 pieces, which I'm super glad of, because cutting something like this is creates quite a large circle, a large wreath, and it's just easier. I was like, this was brilliant design to have it in 2 separate pieces. One, it just gives more options, but also just, you're not wasting as much paper, cardstock, watercolor paper, whatever you're die cutting it from. So I die cut it from the same watercolor paper, that Strathmore watercolor paper. And I'm using the same inks and fully covering the leaves this time. I'm still not, worrying about it too much. Just letting the colors blend into each other and just making sure I cover everything. And that's it. Like, just get that color on there and allow them to get to know each other a bit, because we're also going to spray this with water too, but not as heavily. Because if I sprayed this with as much water as I did that background, all the color's going to run right off. You're going to be left with, nothing. So this time I'm holding the spray bottle quite high and sort of pressing it halfway. I'm just using my Nouveau spray bottle. I will mention the like Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer is if you want that splotchy splattery effect with a sprayer, that one, perfection. This one's more of a mist, and I don't get as much blotchiness, but that's fine. So I just hold it up, spray it, let it sit for a few seconds, and then I just press paper towel into it, pick up that water, and it creates all that texture, and all the fun things. So I set that aside. And this is one of the oldie but goodies. This is the tall mushrooms die set. A lot of you are aware I have an obsession, I don't know why, with mushroom wafer dies. Especially there's one set from Simon Says Stamp that I absolutely love. I've done like a couple dozen videos using it. And I was going to use it for this. It's completely sold out right now. So I backtracked and I, flipped through my stash and I came across this little set, and I'm glad I did. I haven't used this one. I don't reach for it as often, but it's so cute. And because it's a little bit smaller, it's got a little bit more flexibility for something like this too. So I die cut it this time from Simon's Smooth White cardstock. I could have used the watercolor paper, but for these I wasn't going for the splotchy and, water techniques, anything like that. Like this, I'm just doing ink blending. So on the undersides and the stems, I blended Shark Positively Saturated ink. And then I used Whale ink, which is just a much darker gray. And then I went in on these little mushroom caps with Galaxy and then Raindrop on a couple of them. And like blended those, colors together. So I've just got this like gray to Galaxy's like a really deep royal blue with almost like a little bit of a purple undertone to it. Oh, love that color. And then a little bit of the Raindrop. So once I've got all my pieces blended, I'm going to adhere them all together with glue, like make my little mushrooms. And yeah, I don't know what my little fixation is. I just think because mushrooms to me are just neutrals. Just same with like leaves, and yeah, can't go wrong with leaves because you can have so much fun with them. And mushrooms are in that same category. You can do, real to life colors. You can do whatever random color combo you want, like this, blue and gray. I wouldn't be surprised if mushrooms existed in real life in these colors. I wouldn't be surprised. But you can kind of do whatever you want. And they just, like they're a neutral, They work with everything. You can mix and match and have fun with them. So I just used liquid glue. You'd hear the stems, and then you hear the little tops, and you've got these cute little mushrooms. So I'm going to get all of my little mushrooms assembled, and I die cut everything twice because the die set does one of each. You got a large, a medium, and a small. That's another reason why I love, especially the original mushroom set and this one. I like having a variety of sizes. That works very nicely in design and all the things. Having 3 of something, like a large, a medium, a small, whether it's embellishments, mushrooms, whatever, it gives more flexibility to creating and assembling and just where the eye goes. So after I'd assembled my mushrooms, my background, I need to trim down just a little bit because the panel was originally about 4.5 by 6 inches. So I'm trimming it down now to A2 size. So 4.25 by 5.5 inches. And once I've got that trimmed down, the die cut fall wreath, I am going to pop this up with thin foam squares. So I'm just going to trim them down and then stick them behind different portions of these leaves. And then once I've got these into place, I can adhere them. So I'm going to pop on my little foam squares and then build my little wreath. And then with one like this, if you really wanted to like fill it out. You could die cut it multiple times and just shift where you're adhering them. Like rotate the next layer, etc., etc. But I found one layer was more than enough because then I still, didn't want to fully cover the like embossed background because I like how those peek out. It all just works. I love when things come together. And it was just, like I said, had a random idea in my head. Color combo just took a turn into its own sort of a thing. And this was fun. So got the wreath assembled and then my little mushrooms. Popped those up with little thin foam squares and some liquid glue too. Just tucked them in to this little wreath. And then once they were in place, I'm going to put this into my splat box because of course I'm adding a bunch of splatter to this. So I'm going to put this and the extra pieces because we're going to use those extra pieces on the inside. So I'm going to put this inside my splat box and my first layer of splatter is just going to be white gouache. So I got my little palette, put a little bit of white gouache on there. White craft paint will work. White splatter mediums, We now have so many options. So many options. They're all great. Love it all. Do I have most of it? Of course I do. I jump around with all of it, but this white gouache I reach for the most consistently at this point anyway. So put a bit of that on my palette, thinned it out with some water, worked it up real good with my fan brush, and then I added a heavy amount of splatter to the whole background and then to the mushrooms themselves because, it gives it texture and detail and little spots. So did all of that, and then I'm going to add black splatter, which I know freaks some people out. It's totally okay. Splatter's not for everyone. Some people don't like the look of it. That's fine. Those that are splatter curious, trust me, it's fun. It's fun. The more you do it, it's definitely one of those things too. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. You guys see me splattering with abandon and just making an absolute happy little mess and fully enjoying it. That wasn't how I felt when I first, started dipping my toes in all of it. It's especially like black. It's like, oh my, I'm going to ruin everything. You get used to it. And then it's just fun. I don't know. I like the look of it. So did the same thing. I added the black gouache to my palette, added some water, thinned it out, and then added a lot of splatter to this because once I start, I can't stop. And then with the black gouache especially, clean that up. The stuff stains. The nice thing about gouache is it cleans up with water really, really easily. The black, though, it stains. So you just, be aware. So I set all that aside. And then for my sentiment, I'm using the little CZ Design Small Thanks. It's just a little mini set with, basic thanks words in different fonts. And then a whole bunch of little like sub-sentiments to build little thank you phrases. Love that. Love options. So I took one of the thanks words on black cardstock. I'd use my anti-static powder tool. I stamped the sentiment, which is white pigment ink. Clear embossing ink works too. Coated it with white embossing powder, melted it with my heat tool, set it aside for a second. I stamped the sub-sentiment with black ink on white cardstock. And then I took my microfiber cloth and buffed away that excess anti-static powder on the black cardstock. And I'm going to use the coordinating wafer die to die cut the sentiment. And I'm also going to die cut the remaining little bit of the cardstock just so I can double those up, build a little bit of dimension to my sentiments. And I trimmed out the little companion sentiment with one of the sentiment label like wafer dies. And then I decided I wanted to add some twine to this. And I've already adhered, my wreath and my mushrooms and all the things. And I also just didn't want the twine to be stretched around the entire card front. So I decided where I wanted the bow to be. And then I just pierced a hole through the watercolor paper. And then I feed my little twine just kind of underneath that one portion of the wreath here. And I could have grabbed my tweezers to grab that, but I just felt like, I don't know, making life more difficult. But I got it through. I'm going to thread it through the hole. And this twine, I'll link to one similar. This one I think was like an old Lawn Fawn twine. I'm not even sure. I've had it for ages. But yeah, any twine will work. Like, I love baker's twine in all forms. So threaded that through, wrapped it around, and then as always, I start my knot, and this is where the reverse tweezers come in super handy. At least I grabbed them for this. Could have used them to pull it through the little wreath there, but I start the knot. I use the reverse tweezers to pinch it in place so I can fiddle and make my bow without everything unraveling. And then once I'm happy with, everything, I can pull it tight and then remove the reverse tweezers, and then you pull it tight again to get it like fully tight. And then if I do any more adjustments, I just press my thumb down on the knot so that it doesn't undo all the work I just did. And then I can trim the tails off. And then to adhere my sentiments, I'm just going to use just a portion of a little foam square just to even things out on the thanks word, and then get that adhered into place. And then the little sub-sentiment, I'm just going to put those same thin foam squares on the back of that one. Again, just to pop it up a smidge and get it adhered on top of all of that texture and, randomness I've got going on between all the different little layers and whatnot. So get that into place. And then my card base is a top folding A2 white note card. So 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I just adhered those little mushrooms to the bottom corner of the card. I decided not to stamp any other sentiments. Just gives me a wide open space, to write something. So those I'm going to adhere with just the liquid glue. And then I let it sit for a minute. And then I can flip over the card base and trim off the little bits of the stems that are hanging off the bottom of this card. So get my little mushroom cluster. I think they're cute. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. Mushrooms have become a fixation. In art. I don't actually like them. Like eating them, not the biggest fan. Anyway, reinforce the fold on the card. And then to adhere the card front to the card base, I'm just using the liquid glue. Just making sure to hit basically the flat areas, because obviously from the back, it's the debossed areas. That isn't going to touch anything. So just getting glue on all the flat areas. And then I can line that up. This will completely cover the card base. And then my final little bit of embellishment is some Pawsitively Dazzling gems in royal, just blue. So these are super bright and I love them. And they always look a little weird. You can kind of tell in the dish a little bit of the reflection, but like the minute I place them like on a card, they just look dark, no matter what color I use. But the beauty in these is when you like tilt everything in the light or looking at it in real life, because you're looking at it from an angle. So anyway, I picked them up with my little embellishment wand and then just adhered them into place with little dabs of the glue. And I just got to let the glue dry. And this card is complete. So I love just that runny look to the inks. That was fun. And like I said, I'm going to have to revisit this and play with stuff like this more and you can't control it. I know it's scary, but it's fun. It's really fun. So we've got color and splatter and leaves and mushrooms and bling and all the fun things. So thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting, letting them robot overlords know you like what you see. Subscribe if you haven't. I would love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!